Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Embarrassing. There's no other way to say it. What an absolutely gutless performance other than De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. Where the hell's Keegan Murray again? All right? Why even show up? Kevin Huerter, why even show up? I mean, it's unbelievable. Bench did nothing. Nothing. The Blazers were without Shaedon Sharpe and DeAndre Ayton. They scored 130 points. They won for the fourth time all year at home. Digest that for a minute. The Blazers were 7-21 coming in and 3-10 at home. And they score 130 points against this Matador defense, Sacramento Kings. Soft, soft, soft. Embarrassing. Ryan in Sacktown, I said this at halftime. I predicted the Kings to win, but I said if they didn't, it would be the worst loss of the season. This is the worst loss of the season.
It's not the worst loss of the season. Here's why. The Kings had 3 days rest heading into Houston, and they got the brakes blown off of them. And I get that Houston team is a better team.
They didn't have Fox.
But they didn't have Fox still. That one exposed the Kings' liabilities and showed us what this team may have to deal with at times.
Okay. I don't like to make too much out of one game, but I'm seeing too many of these games. All right? I'm seeing too many of these type of games where good teams don't lose like this often by this margin of score. Like, good teams will go on the road and lose a game like this, 118-116, 115-114. You know what, Ryan? This team had to go on a 10-0 run at the end of the half to get it to a 7-point game. Then they come out in the third quarter and they allow 37 points. All right? They allow 37 points when that's supposed to be their quarter to take charge of the game. They let the Blazers come out and do whatever they want.
Grant, it's argued who is the leader of this Kings team. I think one thing that is not argued is there is not a vocal leader on this team, defensively specifically. There's not that one guy that's getting the guys going that you can count on. And the liability on the perimeter shows, especially when you have guys that are not defenders trying to step up, and it just goes downhill from there, Grant. I mean, last year, Grant, we were on a climb, and at the top of the mountain was the playoffs.
Yep.
This year, we're on a bumpy, old wooden roller coaster.
Yep. It's a great way of saying it. It's a great way of saying it. There's no rhythm to this team this year.
No.
Right? There's no rhythm. I always use the word consistency, but I'm going to change that word, and I'm going to talk about rhythm. This team has no rhythm. None. And I'm tired of talking about Keegan Murray's bad games. And I'm not giving Huerter a pass or Barnes, but I'm pointing at Murray because he was supposed to be the third guy of the big three, right? He was going to be the guy that would develop and be able to be that guy. There were too many games when Keegan Murray is invisible, doing nothing. He played 36 minutes tonight, was 2 of 11, and only had 4 rebounds. How do you play 36 minutes at the forward position and only have 4 rebounds? Are you kidding me? Like, all right, so if the shot's not falling, that's one thing. But, I mean, give me a freaking break here.
Well, Grant, I think it goes to the flow of this team. You can't expect somebody like Keegan to get into a mode and pick this team up when he's touching the ball every couple possessions. You can't expect him to crash the boards and get a double-double when predominantly he's around the three-point line when the ball is shot. So it really is showing or exposing to everybody, including the fan base, that this team is constructed of a lot of finishers and not enough starters. And the problem with that is the finishers, the Huerters, the Keegan Murrays, they're not finishing. The Trey Lyles didn't even take a shot tonight, Grant.
In 14 minutes, he didn't even take a shot. Think about that for a minute. All right? The bench did absolutely nothing in this game. Nothing. They were basically 7 points for Monk, 4 points for McGee, 4 points for Duarte, 2 points for Mitchell. Vezenkov didn't score in 9 minutes, missed all 3 of his threes. I mean, we can just go on and on. There were only 2 guys that showed up tonight for the Sacramento Kings. 2. De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. That's it.
And De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis are not enough to carry you to that next step in this team's journey. Grant, you mentioned the bench and the lack of production. We talk about the Kings' net rating overall as a team. Well, in the NBA, the Kings' bench is 18th in the NBA in net rating. And this is a year we're talking about the team being deeper than ever, right? This was, Grant, scary enough. You want to say the worst loss of the season? This was the first night the entire team was healthy.
Yeah. Well, they didn't look it. Thank you very much for the donation, Charles. It says, I agree, Grant. I'm pissed at Murray more than anyone, but it's more related to my fantasy league. That's why I do not play. You're not trading for Dylan Brooks. First of all, he's probably not available. All right. Here we go again. You know, our starters got blown out by the Blazers bench. We can go on and on with all. Listen, I'm seeing all the messages, and they're all right. I can't really disagree with them. I really can't disagree with them. Man.
But it takes us to what's the next step, right? I mean, the Kings are now the best win on the schedule for the Portland Trail Blazers this season, easily. Before it was probably Phoenix, if you want to nitpick. But now they go into a team against Atlanta, right? On a really funky road trip. And an Atlanta team that can be up and down. You're going to see Bogey again, who just had 22 points tonight.
Yep.
And then you see Memphis, Grant. Ja Morant, player of the week in the NBA Western Conference. They're humming and rolling at the right time. And so as we pass the third mark of this season, what is this team? And
I don't know.
Is there even a piece that fixes this team? And where do you even start?
And, you know, Memphis has Denver and the Clippers coming up before they play Sacramento. So that's going to be interesting for them. You talk about Atlanta, they're really disappointing. They're 12-18, and they have only 4 wins at home. But guess what? The Portland Trail Blazers only had 3 wins at home, and they kicked your ass tonight. So,
amen.
You know, all I can do is shake my head. I mean, I'd love to sit here and tell you I'm not making excuses. This was an embarrassing loss for the Sacramento Kings. And it, once again, to me, exhibits some red flags. And here's the other deal. We're almost into 2024. The Kings, okay, after tonight's game, once again, have a negative point differential. Of the top 8 teams in the Western Conference, the Sacramento Kings are the only team with a negative point differential in the Western Conference, okay? No one else is even close to 0.
Yeah, exactly.
And minus 0.5.
And that's the scary part about this team, and that's why it's worrisome about where they're going to make this up. But at this point, I think it's fair. You don't like this argument, but I'm going here. There's an element of coaching that needs to be addressed with Mike Brown as well. And I get players have to show up, and you can't have what you got from Keegan tonight, but something is different about it. Feels like this system all of a sudden, Grant, doesn't fit these players.
Okay, let's get into that. By the way, with those numbers I gave you, the Kings went from 4th to 6th in the West tonight. Okay, how could the system not fit the players when you, for all intents and purposes, have the same players that you had last year and you won 48 games?
That's what's absolutely perplexing. So, I mean, many times last year and even coming into this year, the question was asked, well, how good would that Kings team last year have been against this year's NBA or a healthy NBA? Maybe we're partially getting the answer to that, but yeah, perplexed.
Well, you're now teetering on an awful road trip, okay? Because this was supposed to be the game that you were supposed to win, with 2 very winnable games coming after that. Now, all of a sudden, you are facing a 2-game losing streak, going across the country to play a team that, again, you should beat, and then a team that's red hot right now in Memphis. You could still come home 2-1 and you could say, all right, you lost to Portland, but it was still a good road trip. I'm okay with that. All right. If you tell me that the Kings are going to win against Atlanta, against Memphis, I will call it a good road trip. If you lose one of these next two games, it's not a good road trip. Just the way it is. Not losing to Portland and then splitting the other two. It's not a good road trip.
I don't think 2-1 makes me feel any better about this road trip
Why?
because of what happened tonight. And it's simply because if I'm going to look at the long-term picture with this team and assume that they're going to make the playoffs, this team's not going very far in the playoffs, Grant. You don't know what team's going to show up on a nightly basis. So great, you show up in Memphis, you perform. You show up, you beat Atlanta, you should beat Atlanta, but we see another prototypical Kings massive blowout tonight.
Yeah.
So there's a massive problem here.
And you got the Clippers and Charlotte playing right now in LA, tied at 93. So if the Clippers do lose that game, the Kings would jump ahead of them in the standings. But again, we'll keep you up to date on that score. Here's the bottom line. All right. This season's not new anymore. Okay. This season's not new anymore. You're almost to 2024. And the game that's going to be played in Atlanta next will be the 30th game of the season. So it's not a young season anymore.
Right.
This team is what they are. They're wildly inconsistent, which begs the question, as we turn the calendar in a couple of days to 2024, does this team need a big-time shakeup by Monty McNair that does not include the names of De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis?
No.
Okay.
No, they don't. And here's why. They don't need a big-time shakeup because this isn't a championship team yet. What they need is a shakeup that helps this team take the next step. Now, if they overachieve there, then they're ahead of schedule, right? But if you try to make a big splash for the sense of making a big splash and bring in a Zach LaVine, you are now hand-tying the organization to a lot of money. And you are saying this is the guy that is going to take the team, not just this year, but in the future over the top.
Well, it's always, every season's got bumps and hills, and you get peaks, and you go up and down. We want to compare this year's team to last year's team because you have the same coaching staff and you have pretty much the same players. But last year's team just felt so much better than this year's team. Like this time last year, I had a feeling that I knew which Kings team was going to show up from night to night for the most part. There were glitches along the way. Right now, I don't know which Kings team is going to show up from game to game. I really don't. And I don't know, other than Fox and Sabonis, who's going to step up. I mean, what happens if the Kings go to Atlanta and Trae Young outplays De'Aaron Fox and Fox doesn't have a good game? I'm just hypothetically. Who's going to be the guy that picks up for Fox? Who's going to be that guy? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think Mike Brown really knows either,
Yeah.
Grant, at this point. And I think that's, again, the concerning thing about this team. All
right, so the final score tonight, Sacramento, they're not even in the game. Not even in the game. They lose 130 to 113.
Grant, you're talking about the feel of this team. I want to be careful how I say this because I think this team loves basketball, but this team doesn't appear to love playing basketball together as much as last year's team.
I agree.
Appeared to love playing basketball.
I agree with you. It appears that way to me too. That's what I keep saying to you on these shows. I keep on saying to you, something's missing here. I keep on saying that. There's just something that's off, right? It's off.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Oh, wow. I didn't expect this tonight, Ryan. I woke up this morning and I was thinking, all right, start of a 3-game trip. This is the one. Yeah. And then when I saw that DeAndre Ayton and Shaedon Sharpe weren't playing, I was like, oh, okay. It almost seems like every time there's a key player or players out for the other team, the Kings lose. I mean, we saw it with the Boston Celtics played an overtime game the night before, and then you find out that Jason Tatum's not playing and Al Horford's not playing, and they score 140 points.
Yep. Yep. I guess there's somebody in Vegas that knows something we don't. But
yeah, you think?
But yeah, it's almost like that, like time to worry when you see a positive injury report in your favor.
How about this? Grant, you are being very negative. Yeah, you think? Really? You're not being negative about this? Kings need at least 2 all-star like players at the deadline. Come on, Lydia. Or we
Come
may just be a
Lids.
play-in team. Lydia, stop it, would you please?
Lids,
Come
and
on.
I would love a Bennett's New York steak in front of me right now with a side of spinach, but unfortunately,
Lydia.
because of the time of night and where I live, it's not happening.
Lydia, how are you going to get 2 all-star players at the trade deadline that don't include the names De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis? Thank you very much for the donation. You can criticize the coach of the year. The man gets paid a lot of money. He shouldn't get a free pass. No one's giving him a free pass. I'm not giving him are you giving him a free pass? I'm not. I mean, last year was last year. Last year doesn't mean anything. There are a lot of coaches, and again, understand what I'm getting ready to say here. I'm not saying that Mike Brown should be fired. There are a lot of coaches that have been fired the year after they won Coach of the Year. That's not that much of an aberration. It really isn't.
That's a good point. And yeah, I agree. I don't think we're anywhere in that neighborhood, but the system, it's not setting up other
Right.
guys the way it set up the guys last year.
I'm going to
And
tell
it
you
seems
this.
like
Go ahead. I want to finish one thought before you get to the system. Here's the one thing, though, that is the wild card in all of this. You have an owner who is extremely meddling and does a lot of irrational things and irrational decisions. And that would always make me nervous if I'm Mike Brown. Now, he's got a guaranteed deal, but I'm just saying, okay, and I don't forecast this to happen. If this team were to collapse, and again, I'm not forecasting that, but if it did, all bets off.
No doubt. I mean, like you said, the history is there. This team, Grant, just feels like one of those teams that Coach Brown needs to call the guys in on a weekend, and they need to go back to the basics. This offense so much is predicated around setting good screens. It's not happening, right? You have to be able to shoot free throws at a high percentage. The Kings are 28th in the league at free throw percentage this season. And it's not the other guys, it's your 2 stars that are struggling from the line. So it just feels like one of those closed door practices and do a manual reset.
Anita, and we talk about this all the time, Anita. It seems like the Kings expected to win games based on their reputation and do not come out and do the game work to actually win the game. You're right. We talk about that all too often. You always say this. Kings just seem to play to the level of their competition.
Yeah, but here's the difference about this year, Grant. The Kings did it. They've done it for a while, or it feels that way, but they did it while shooting the 3-ball well. This team is not shooting the 3-ball well at all lately, and that's their bread and butter.
Okay, what did I just say before I made that comment? What did I say for these idiots that only hear what they want to hear? What did I say?
I am not saying this in any way.
Thank you. Idiot. I'm not going to block you for being stupid, but don't text me anymore, okay? Unbelievable. Do you completely change the lineup, something that looks completely different? No, you don't completely change the lineup, but I wouldn't mind making a change to the lineup. Personally, I would not.
The change that needs to be made, it's not to the starting lineup. The Kings have had great success this year with De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk on the court at the same time.
Yeah,
they need to keep doing that more.
I'm all for it. But right now, you have 2 games left in 2023, and you're trending the wrong way right now. And I'm more concerned with how the team is playing than just the W and the L. Like, okay, I know the bottom line is you have the standings and you either win or you lose. But I'm going to go back to that point differential. That I can't get that out of my mind because that is a very telling. It tells the story.
Doesn't lie.
And so, yeah, the Kings lost tonight. Okay, I'm more concerned with how they lost. Okay, I'm more concerned with how they lost against Minnesota. I'm more concerned about how they lost to Boston. Do you understand? Like, they're not competitive in these games.
Yeah, they're not. And again, that's why, and the players bear their responsibility. The coaches can't play for them, as we always say. But that's why I'm wondering why or what's going on and why a change needs to be made with their approach to the game, Grant. I mean, in your 32 years,
Yep.
When do you see a basketball team that has a clear advantage? Like tonight, we saw in the first half in the paint, advantage Kings. What do they do in the second half? The Blazers turn things around and blow them out in points in the paint. That's not just a one night thing. That's a consistent thing.
Okay, and what are the Kings? The Kings are a 3-point shooting team, right?
Yeah.
3-point shooting teams don't score in the paint. They score from outside the arc, which is not dissimilar from a lot of other teams in the league. So Jerry talks about this all the time. He would love to see the Kings get the ball to Harrison Barnes and let him post up a couple times and get to the foul line and get to the basket. And we just don't ever see we don't. Again, I'm not saying that's going to change the fortunes of the team, but we don't see that, right?
No, we rarely see that happen. And when we do see it, for the most part, it benefits the team.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about 3-point shooting all we want. I'm going to go back to the same issue that this team has had for a couple of decades now. And when I mean a couple of decades, I'm talking about this decade and the last decade. Their defense is pathetic. They can't stop anybody. They can't stop dribble drive penetration. They can't play down on the post. They're soft. They really have a lack of toughness. And I mean, how are you going to stop the other team? Look at the point totals the Kings are giving up. They allowed 130 points tonight to a horrible team without 2 key players.
And how about the Wizards
game? 140 points against Boston without their leading scorer in Jason Tatum. Okay? Didn't even play. They still scored 140 points.
Yeah, and sprink the Wizards right there on top of those two as well. They put up 131, I want to say.
Yes, that's correct.
So no, you're spot on. It's Grant. The problem is this defense is predicated around taking charges. So that tells you this coaching staff knows they have an issue with the personnel either running the defensive system they want to run or the personnel not being able to defend.
All right, you were talking about you would love a big steak and what was the side you want?
Oh, little sauteed spinach too.
Oh, I love the sauteed spinach that comes with the red fish. It's great. Don't forget about Bennett's. Their new location is the West Side Grill in Rockland, but they have a location in Sacramento and they have a location in Roseville. Just go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com. Check out the menu, make a reservation, 60 different types of wine available by the glass. I would love a New York steak right now. A prime New York from Bennett's would be perfect with a nice glass of red wine. Oh, do it. Bennett's. Go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com. No champagne tonight because there's nothing to celebrate if you're a Kings fan. So no champagne.
Nope. You ordered a mid-rare steak at a bad restaurant and it came out well done. Sorry. Should have gone to Bennett's. Should have gone to Bennett's. 60 glasses of wine by the glass.
Oh, my gosh. By the way, the Clippers with 2:14 left are on top of Charlotte 106-100. So we'll keep you glued on that score. Again, 2 games coming up on this road trip. Atlanta, followed by a New Year's Eve game against Memphis. I can't tell you how many times in 32. I can't begin to tell you how many times in 32 years I was on that damn King's charter when the clock struck midnight on New Year's Eve. I mean, so many times. Oh, so many times. So many times you would take off in a year and land in the next year. I can't even – it just seems like the Kings are on the road every single New Year's Eve playing somewhere. And
did you ever get a double New Year's where you crossed over in the Eastern?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. Never had that happen. Nope.
That's pretty cool. So what's
that, but I never happened.
What's a New Year's celebration look like on a King's chartered flight?
Nothing. Everyone's sleeping. The lights are out, and no one says anything. No one's aware of it, and it's not a big deal. No one even makes the flight attendant, pilot. No one even acknowledges it. Yeah.
Very cool. You know the worst about New Year's is the coworkers that always say, "See you next year," right before like the Christmas break. You know, like it's just the most cheesy one. See you next year, guys.
Man. Lydia said, got to pick my steak out in the front window and cooked it to perfection. Yeah, that's what's great.
Nice.
You can buy your steaks right there. It's right there. When you walk in, they got the fresh cut of beef right there, and you pick out what you want, take it home, and grill it. Yeah, it's great. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And bring your appetite too. We rarely talk about the portion sizes. You don't leave hungry. You do not.
No. Thank you very much. Steak from Bennett sounds delicious, but with this loss, no wine either. I'm thinking more 10 cans of extremely cheap beer to drown this out. They don't have cheap beer at Bennett's. By that, I mean, they only got high quality stuff. So I don't know if you're going to find what you're looking for. You can get a great steak. You're not going to get a cheap steak. The prime steaks there, prime cut. You know what I mean? So you need to go to like, I don't want to name the restaurant because I don't want to offend anybody, but what you're looking for would not be Bennett. Okay.
There, though, just like there's prime cuts of steak, there's prime other things.
That's exactly right. All right. Hey, I hope you don't have any problems with your plumbing, but if you do, I want you to keep New Works Plumbing in mind. And maybe right now there's no issues, but maybe next week, next month, and you're like, oh, what was the name of that company that Napes keeps on talking about? Well, the company is New Works Plumbing. SackServicePlumbing.com or NewWorksPlumbing.com will get you to what you need. And the phone number is right there. So you can jot that down and save it for whenever you need anything from New Works Plumbing. They've got a fix for you. They're awesome. They're available 24/7. That's NewWorksPlumbing.com or SackServicePlumbing.com. There's not a lot to talk about in a positive way. Let's talk about a positive. How about De'Aaron Fox? How great was he?
Quietly tying his career high tonight. I mean, just special. I mean, Grant, if De'Aaron had a bigger personality and wasn't as quiet and just really, to himself off the court as much as it seems, he would be everywhere with this league in terms of promotion and, right behind getting the rocket on him to become.
He's a family man. He and his wife have, a young son, and he's either with his family or he's in the gym, and I respect the heck out of him for that. I really do.
Mm-hmm. His quickness on defense, and it's funny that you can say a guy as quick as he can improve there. His hands defensively with the tip balls and the steals this year have been incredible.
Yeah, and again, I'm nitpicking here. Okay, the guy played 38 minutes. He only had 4 assists, but that's because nobody on his team could make a shot. He did turn the ball over 5 times, and I know De'Aaron. And I know that's eating him up that he turned the ball over 5 times. He takes great pride in that aspect of his game. But, I mean, when you score 43 points on 26 shots, that's big time. That's big time.
Yeah, Grant, he can, like I said, I think he's probably the number one guy at getting to the rim from a guard position in Kings history. And now actually franchise history, he's 9th overall in assists. But Kings history, in Sacramento, number 1.
All right, 130 to 113, the final. And I don't have a lot to add to this, but I do want to tell you about CalusaSunrise.com. This beautiful development from Blazona Development in Calusa, Sunrise Landing. 6 models to choose from, no Mellorews, no homeowners. The first phase sold out, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the individual that was down there on the home tour on Christmas Eve. But it's Sunrise Landing, and if you go to CalusaSunrise.com, you can check out all the information. You can make an appointment. You can go look at all of the different models. It's all there for you at Sunrise Landing from Blazona Development. 130 to 113. The Kings get shellacked tonight. They get absolutely steamrolled.
They do indeed. The one positive tonight is all of you out there that are watching us. You guys have been awesome. 2,600 miles to go to Bennett's. What an incredible thing. And now tours on Christmas Eve for Sunrise Landing. Best group of fans in the NBA. Pretty good.
Very good. Absolutely. Very good. No question about that. A lot of people want Kevin Huerter benched. I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine with starting Malik Monk for a while. I'd be absolutely fine with that.
Really?
Yep, I
That
would. Well,
would
you just said it.
okay.
You just told me you want to see Fox and Monk on the floor a lot more together. Well, let's try it because what? Why not? What do you have to lose right now?
You have a lot to lose. You have nothing off the bench, Grant.
Well, you
You
don't
saw
have,
it without.
but you
You
have
saw
nothing
what
from your two.
happened.
But you're getting nothing from your two guard. Your starting two guard is doing nothing. He played 22 minutes tonight and had 5 freaking points. All right. Monk played 19 minutes tonight. He didn't shoot the ball well, but I'll take my chances with Monk on the floor over Kevin Huerter right now.
I say shake it up. Throw in, if you're going to shake it up, throw in Keon Ellis, throw in Kessler Edwards. At the very least, we know Kessler can put out what Kevin's done on many of his low output nights, and we know the defense will be much better. And then you still have a spark with Malik off the bench. The Kings, this bench struggle really started with this foot injury with Malik. He had one good game.
Yeah.
He slowed down, and then the game he was out, you could see there was no playmaking besides De'Aaron Fox.
Okay, so I don't want to see Duarte in the starting lineup. Been there, done that.
No.
To me, Edwards is just not a starter. He's just not.
Why? What's that line for you looking at somebody that draws it between a starter and a bench guy?
Consistency. I need my starters to be consistent, and that's the problem I have with 3 of the King starters. And I talk about this all the time. I tell you that I have a problem with Barnes, Murray, and Huerter's inconsistency. Go look at all the starting fives of the Kings' opponents that are ahead of them in the standings or right below them in the standings. Look at all their starters. You're not going to find on those teams 3 starters that have played as inconsistently as the King starters. And that's the issue that I have. Now, I'm not expecting them to be 5 all-stars. That's not what I'm saying here. But
Right.
Mike Brown right now has no idea what he's going to get from Barnes, Murray, or Huerter from night to night. He knows what he's going to get from Fox. He knows what he's going to get from Sabonis and Monk on most nights. Now, I don't care who you are. You're going to have a bad night. Even Steph Curry will have an off night. Malik Monk is okay. You know, maybe the foot is an issue, and I think you make a good point. But most of the games this year, you can count on Monk. You tell me, against Atlanta, do you know how Harrison Barnes, Keegan Murray, and Kevin Huerter are going to play? I don't, but I know how Fox is going to play, and I know how Sabonis is going to play.
Yeah, no, and I think that's why, for me, the argument there is you throw in a guy like a Kessler Edwards, you throw in a Keon Ellis, and you see what happens because you still, again, have that backup with Malik. But here's the question, because we're talking about inconsistencies with these 3 players. For the most part, people seem to think Keegan is off limits. He's staying in Sacramento, won't be parts of trades. But if you could upgrade one of those 2 positions between Kevin Huerter and Harrison Barnes, which is more important?
He's not off my He's not off my list. In other words,
I don't disagree.
What I mean by that, he's on my list of if you want him, make me an offer. Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. Yeah.
Fox
and Sabonis are the only 2 guys I'm not trading. Now, if you called me up and made me, if you said, "Hey, I'll give you Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown," I'm like, "Okay, I'll drive him to the airport." But again, or if you call up and say, "I'll give you, the Greek Freak," and you give me Keegan Murray, okay, I'll charter the aircraft myself. You know what I mean? Like there are certain, but you got to be realistic. Those deals aren't happening. But yeah, I would have him available. Absolutely.
So and I agree with you 100%. But out of Harrison Barnes and Kevin Huerter, if you had the opportunity to upgrade the 2 or the 3 in this Kings starting lineup, whether that's on the team or more specifically outside the team, which is more important?
I'm upgrading the 2 because you win and lose. Because you win and lose in the NBA with your guards. And Harrison Barnes does so many things for this team that the fans don't even see. So if you gave me an ultimatum, I'm getting another 2 guard as opposed to getting Barnes in a trade. Because I know what he does for the team off the floor, and it's not like he doesn't contribute. I know he gets overshadowed by Sabonis and Fox, and we get all of that. But if you're asking me, it is a guard-oriented league. It's not a forward-oriented league anymore. It's a guard-oriented league. I need good guards. I have an all-star. I have one of the very best, but I need a guy next to him that can pour in 20 every night.
Yeah, but you need a certain type of two guard to play alongside with De'Aaron Fox. You need a guy that doesn't need the ball a ton. I mean, let's be wild. I'm just gonna throw a name out really quick. What about, take the money out of it, a Klay Thompson type, who's still a little bit on the decline, right? But in terms of setting and shooting, and you think about him playing off Sabonis, I feel like something like that
Okay,
could
well,
help him there.
he's only, it would be for this year and this year only, because I think, his window is
Right.
rapidly closing. Okay.
Correct.
So if you're going to make a deal like that, you'd have to ask yourself, does that make us a championship caliber team? And in my opinion, no. So what you would have to give up to get him, it's almost like Klay Thompson, for lack of a better term, would be a rental.
He would be a rental unless he is agreed or on the same page that his roles change, meaning his money might be slightly less or, comparable to his output right
Yep.
now. But I guess just a guard like that can play off somebody, because Steph in some ways with his creativity is the same as De'Aaron. De'Aaron's so creative with his steps and the way he can get open. So I don't know. It's tough, Grant.
It is tough. Hey, if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. We would greatly appreciate it. It would make our holiday season even better. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel and also give us a thumbs up. And we have thousands of people that watch via X. And again, we're live on YouTube, so you can check us out there if you want. So we have people that watch on YouTube. We have thousands of people that watch every night on X. We appreciate you being there. And again, if you can get a chance to go to the YouTube channel, if you don't like that with Grant Napier, and subscribe, it would greatly appreciate me and Ryan. So thank you very much. All right. I don't have anything else to say. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, I think that's it for me. You gotta get back on the horse and get ready to go back at it with Atlanta and hopefully get a big win heading into Memphis, Napes.
Yeah. I mean, out of these next two games, based on what we've seen with John Moran, who's the reigning Western Conference Player of the Week, it looks like Memphis. We're going to know a little bit more about Memphis in the next couple of games, because they play, you ready for this? They play Denver, and then they play the Clippers on Friday before they play Sacramento. So we're going to, they just beat New Orleans again. They beat New Orleans twice in 10 days in New Orleans. Both come from behind victories.
Yeah, very impressive, especially considering the Kings' struggles against New Orleans. So the fact that Memphis was able to pull that off, but all comes down to Garden Jaw.
Unbelievable. The final is in. The Clippers do beat the Hornets 113-104. So they win, and they stay ahead of Sacramento in the West at 18-12. So the Kings are 6th. Here's your standings: Minnesota, Denver, Oklahoma City, the Clippers in Dallas 18-12, and the Kings are behind them at 17-12, with Atlanta and Memphis to come. Buddy, appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of the night, if it's possible, after watching that game, and we'll talk to you for the Kings and the Hawks. And don't forget Sean Salisbury tomorrow. I have not yet confirmed Jerry Reynolds. He may be up in Tahoe and unavailable to do it, but if Jerry can do his normal show, that would be an hour after Sean. So we would go Sean Salisbury at 3 and Jerry at 4. Just follow us on social media. You see our X accounts, Twitter, and you'll know about it. Or if you subscribe to the channel, you'll know about it because you'll get notified. All right?
There you go. Subscribe, please. And hey, don't forget to go check out the merch, Grant.
Yeah, that's right. Go check out the merch. And if you go to my website, ifyoudon'tlikethat.com, all right, here it is. Ifyoudon'tlikethat.com, just click on shop and it will take you right to the link. You click on the link and you can look at all of the new merch. Ifyoudon'tlikethat.com. You can always go to grantnapier.com, and also all of my work's on there. Everything that we do, you can listen at your leisure, my rants, podcast, and everything else. It's right there on my website. Appreciate you, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Not a good way to start the road trip. We'll see what happens next.